In that case, the CA granted a TRO because the Ombudsman failed to establish that the evidence of guilt is strong. A preventive suspension order, Your Honor, is not absolute. It is conditioned, among other things, on when the evidence of guilt is strong. Let's look at the complaint filed by Rica Franca in this case. He alleges that Chief Purisima actually committed a crime against the Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, which states that the accused must have caused injury or that he gave any unwarranted benefit on a person. However, in this case, Purisima did not have any participation. The contract was far concluded back in 2011 and he was only appointed in 2012. More importantly, Your Honors, he revoked it when he received news that it was inefficient. This revocation, Your Honor, is not an act of a co-conspirator. Hence, the complaint has no basis. Moreover, what Purisima signed was to make the license delivery more convenient for the owners. We don't see any ill intention on his part. In the case of... Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know that the courier that was contracted is not accredited to do a courier's function?
Your Honor, what Purisima relied on the certification of Meneses as well as the resolution of the FEO. This was outside of his scope, Your Honor. That's why he was acting in good faith. But moreover...
Okay, time's up, Nathan. Carla, 2 minutes to cross-examine him.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker.
Good evening.
Are you aware that WareFast's president is retired Civilian Security Group Chief Ireno Bacolod?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Are you also aware that Purisima was assigned Chief Directorial Staff of CSG from 2007 to 2008 at the same time that Bacolod was also his former boss at that time? Thank you. Or are you also aware that, would you not consider that there are exceptional circumstances in this case? At the moment when Purisima knew that his former boss was the president of the corporation, which will be one of the contracting parties of the MOA, wouldn't it have prodded Purisima to examine the documents or to examine the supporting documents surrounding the transaction, Mr.
But it was concluded in 2011.
Yes or no, Mr. Speaker?
No.
If indeed he was out to protect the interests of the government he swore to serve, wouldn't it be incumbent upon Purisima to be curious and to go beyond what his subordinates have prepared or recommended, don't you think,
Which he
Mr.
did
Speaker?
after the investigation, and he revoked this WareFast deal.
You cannot, Mr. Speaker, as what has been mentioned a while ago, WareFast was incorporated after the MOA was entered. So wouldn't that be, isn't it too much of a coincidence that that Purisima and all his subordinates were negligent at the same time over the same transaction?
No.
So you can, what you're trying to say is exactly evades reason.
In order for you
Mr.
to suspend
Speaker,
the contract, since it will affect the rights
Mr.
of WareFast,
Speaker,
you must take prudent investigation.
Let me continue, Mr. Speaker. Because at the time that the contract was entered, WareFast was not existing at that time because it was only incorporated after the contract was entered. And given that at the time when Purisima approved the...
Okay. Carla, we'll hear from you now. You have 4 minutes to rebut Nathan and to tell us why the Court of Appeals should not stop the suspension of PNP Chief Alan Purisima.
Good evening, Your Honors. The affirmative submits that a TRO is necessary on the ground that the preventive suspension against General Purisima is invalid and was issued without due process. However, the negative side disagrees with this on the following reasons. First, the purpose of a TRO, which is to grant immediate relief, is not present in this case. Second, there is no need to restrain the implementation of the suspension precisely because it was valid. By its nature, a TRO is a provisional remedy available to protect the substantive rights and interests of the applicant. To be entitled to this injunctive relief, the court has held that the petitioner must show the existence of a clear and unmistakable legal right. Second, there must be a paramount necessity for the writ to prevent serious damage. In this case, Your Honors, there is no clear and legal right sought to be protected, and there is no urgent necessity for the TRO to be issued. The court has held that no one has a vested right to any public office, much less a vested right to an expectancy of holding a public office.